I'm delighted now that I'm going to be joined by the chair of the World Energy Council, Jean-Marie Daugé, for a discussion with regard to his reflections on what we have witnessed here over the last 3 days. Jean-Marie, it's great to be able to meet with you virtually. Yourself zooming in, and myself here in the London studio. And perhaps, what I'd like to start with as my first question is that I think we'd all be interested on your key takeaways from watching, listening, and participating over the course of the last 3 days.
Thank you, Anna, and I'm very, very happy to be able to say a few words. Indeed, it's nearly an impossible task to wrap up such a diverse and very intense days we had. So maybe I will not be fully exhaustive, but just the point that came to my mind may be the following ones. Of course, we cannot escape telling a word on COVID, because when we launched 1 year ago the concept of constellation of disruption, we were very far from imagining that the pandemic will occur and that adding to climate change and economic issue, it will be really a perfect storm. So our community has reacted, I would say, in an agile way and quite effectively. But as was mentioned during the some days by some, larger consequences still have to happen, in particular on the economic side. Of course, on the social side also, with possibly a massive destruction of jobs. And of course, with the increase of inequality or poverty in a sense, because of course, the more vulnerable will be affected more than the other maybe. So I think all this will bring the resilience issue back again at the very front row, not only in the energy, but in many other sectors of the societies. Of course, we learned also from that moment, and we are still learning. Digitalization was boosted. Companies have had to experience to live in a low demand environment, not to mention, of course, the mix of energy. And also it has shown some ability of people to change their behavior in case of harsh necessity. So all in all, that was the first point. The question was how this will impact or not the energy transition. It's of course that the response is very different from the one region to the other, but delay will certainly occur. But the general mood, what I heard is that there was some reason to think also that it could be an accelerator, even if the system is delayed, but sooner or later it could, on the contrary, boost the evolution. There was not a consensus on that, but I would say at least, whether it was possibly some sort of wishful thinking, but there was the idea that they could give a boost to the energy transition. And also it comes from the fact that many companies say that in a way, the fact of not moving is certainly the worst strategy possible. So first point, difficult time ahead of us, but certainly not a change in the view that the big trends which were there before will continue to move us into the transition for energy. Second point, which was largely discussed, was the fact that energy is much more than a sector. And that was already known, but it's even clearer. And the fact also that emergence of more customer-centric energy ecosystems gradually progress. Those two elements require from us to adapt our vision and our action towards a more collaborative, open approach to favor the sector coupling things and to better listen and care on the acceptability of the energy transition. If you add that to many other parts of our mission, the second point I will have noticed is that all this leads us to justify, and it was why we have introduced the concept of humanizing energy transition, which becomes at the very top of our agenda. Third, constant recall from our participants, they call for greater cooperation and partnership, which is seen as a condition for the success of the energy transition. And partnership was even once called as absolutely vital for reaching our targets, but also was a strong part of resilience. So on the one hand, there is a very strong recognition that we need more partnership, we need more cooperation. But on the other hand, we have to realize that the conditions are today not very favorable for that, for many reasons, which I will not explain. Fourth point, which was heavily mentioned, was the necessity for innovation, which was generally qualified as not at the good pace. And innovation was also mentioned as something that should be developed much more than it is. And also because many of the solutions which we need for reaching our ambitions are simply not yet there. Fifth point, leadership is essential. Essential simply because we need to share the vision with the community at large, or locally, or more globally. There is a clear need for more coordination, and there is a need to reestablish confidence. And for the one who do, there is a need to consolidate their license to operate. And the leadership issue is very often considered as a problem today. And I don't have time to go any further, but the role of each of the party, the company, the investor, the government, and the regulator, are each of them meant very essential.
So,
Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
Two small point is just to recall one very simple thing. We need to have a cleaner world, and green energy is part of cleaner energy. But green energy is not enough to reach our goal. So we must never forget that the consumption of energy will continue to grow, and that we need all sources of energy, or all sources of technology. So we don't simply need to have more green energy, we need to make other sources of energy greener. And it's very important to understand that. And I will finish just to try to tell you what was the main point at a very, very general level. Say, there is a clear problem with investment. If we want to approach the target more or less in time, it was said that investments have to double, or if not triple, as compared to what we do today. So there is a clear message that the investment direction is not the good one. And then there are a measure that needs to be taken, and that's has to be regarded with governments, with any particular regulation, which has a very important role. But we must not hide the fact that we are not on tracks, and that measures need to be taken to change that.
Okay.
That was very, very briefly, but very generally, the main theme that I have heard during those days.
Jean-Marie, thank you for that. And I think you've brought one highlighting, I think, some of the good things that were discussed, but also those good things have helped, in the way that you talked about it, crystallize the fact that more is needed, crystallize some of the challenges that we continue to face, whether it's regard to leadership, investment, and a number of the other points that you mentioned as well. So I think in that context, was there anything that surprised you about what you heard over the course of the last 3 days? Was there something that you weren't expecting that came up in the agenda or in the discussion?
No, I wouldn't say. No, I don't think I was surprised, because we are in the WEC. At the WEC, we have a good position to observe what what it is about. No, I was surprised maybe by the fact that, of course, there was different vision in different regions, and of course, for example, the impact of COVID seen from Asia is not the same than seen, for example, things like this. But I think the convergence between the various actors and the various is progressing. I would say, day after day, and this makes me, in a sense, a little more optimistic, because I think the task ahead of us is extremely complicated. But I feel, in general, a certain confidence, and in particular the fact that we have different objectives, the one and the other, but the analysis we do are very, very converging. And that, for me, is converging to a point which even surprises me a bit. And the fact that, for example, the fact that some of important companies, for example, are reinventing their strategy in the new framework. The fact that most of the actors are conscious that they need to move and quickly move, I think this is progressing gradually. So it's not a big surprise, but the fact that, independent of all the problems we meet, the trend seems to be shared by more and more.
Yes, and I would absolutely agree with that. I certainly took that away as well. And I think the angle that we're taking on this and the trajectory that we have on this is, as you say, coming together at this moment. I mean, I'd like to switch gears a little bit, because obviously we heard today about Congress in St. Petersburg and the theme for that, and obviously that's in the context of the World Energy Council's Humanizing Energy vision. What do you think needs to be done around that vision and around very interesting aspects that were discussed over the last 3 days to bring this, basically to integrate that vision further into the global energy community? What needs to be done, and how can the World Energy Council support that and drive that message forward over the course of the next 12 months?
Well, I think, first of all, I am very convinced that we, as World Energy Council, can be a very good instrument to favor all this cooperation, all those partnerships that we said we want to see and we want to develop. We said that as WEC, we want to inspire, inform, share, and to have an impact. And I think if you look at the member community, we gather an extraordinary amount of expertise and knowledge. And most of our community is composed of people engaged as doers. So our expertise is tremendous collectively. And what we want to do is that gradually improve our capacity to interconnect companies, people engaged in strategy, in operating things, to share their experience and to find solutions together, be it at the global level, and to favor also these networks, exchange and partnership at local level as well as regional level and interregional. So what we ambition to do is to keep our vision, our approach of systematic systems, to have a systematic view on the energy problems, but to develop a policy and instruments which will be developed closer from where it is implemented and where the solutions are to be found. And we also want to have a WEC which is more impactful and even more involved in the how to do things rather than discussing on what should be done and so on. So
great.
I think there is no community in the energy sector as the one we are. And the last point is to help the process we also want to open our community in larger partnership in order to help this decoupling, sectoral decoupling that are necessary. So really, I'm strongly convinced that WEG can offer a fantastic platform to elaborate or to help our participants to elaborate solutions and to come to share their experience and visions, and possibly to help also to see some sort of emerging of leadership which we need, and which we need also to bring a little more of optimism within some part of the society, which sometimes is a bit doubting of where we go.
Jean-Marie, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you offer a very, very unique platform. And I'd like to bring this session to a close from my side to offer you and the team, warm congratulations in pulling together World Energy Week Live. But before we close this session, I'll go back to yourself, Jean-Marie, for any closing remarks that you would like to have to the wider community and the team.
My very last remark would really to say that this week, as is for me a complete success. I have not followed everything, but I followed many things. I think it is a complete success, and I would like just to give you a few figures, but there has been about 100 countries involved. There was up to 1,600 participants, and more than 200 meetings that have occurred here and there. And the content and the mood and the collaborative approach, the open-minded way, the level of discussion, for me have really reached a very, very high standard. And I would like you to be conscious that the ability to maintain our organization at such a high level, in spite of all the difficulty which the COVID situation has created for the London office, for me, it's a message which I want to convey to all of you. I think what they have done and what you have all done by your participation, the way you did it, is a great encouragement for me. And I would like to thank you very, very much. And more specifically, of course, Angela and all his team. They all made a fantastic job in these circumstances, and you cannot imagine how complicated it has been under the present circumstances. And I hope you will continue to learn about WEC activity, and you will discover that all along those periods, things have been going very well. Even new things have been made. Our flagship have been published. So activity is continuing. And I can tell you, we share, the board, share with the London office, and I hope with all of you, a very great ambition. I hope you share my vision, because I think there are many, many things we can achieve all together.
Jean-Marie, thank you so much. And I'm sure all of your remarks in the context of the success of the last 3 days against the difficulties that the team has faced will be highly appreciated.